Hey everybody, and welcome to the Insurance Journal's Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar after show. I'm your host, George, and joining me for the after show is the instructor for today's class. Today's class was Emerging E&O Risks for 2026. Make sure I get that right. I don't want to risk anything. And then, and the instructor is the inimitable Chris Burand. Chris, welcome. And to hear Chris's whole resume, you have to watch the class because I can't... I don't want to take up Chris's time and mention all his accolades again, but tons of them. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Burand. Chris, welcome to the after show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Always.
So your classes are great because you know so much about the subject. Like, it's amazing. In fact, I think it annoys you how much you know about the subject sometimes. It's because it's so, like, you just want people to not have E&O issues,
Yeah.
And it seems like if you know how to circumvent them, they're easy to circumvent,
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you're giving some pretty decent guidelines as to what to do. Check if they're licensed. Look it up.
Pretty simple stuff in ways. I don't want agents to have E&O claims. They're awful. They drain you emotionally. They can drain you financially. There's nothing good about them. And so I really do take it to heart that I want to do everything I can to educate people so that they can avoid having an E&O claim.
Sure. So I don't know if you're familiar with the insurance AC/DC tribute band PCDC, but one of their big songs is E&O done dirt cheap, and one of the lyrics is, "It don't cost nothing to give bad advice." So your standard, I mean, you really you deep dove into E&O issues, but I mean, at a glance, E&O issues are like misleading advice, failing to deliver work on time, misrepresentation, negligence, not acting in good faith. So when I was getting ready to look at the class and observe while it was unfolding, I was like, what new emerging E&O, like, is there another E&O? Did somebody invent another E&O that we don't know about? But it was kind of like, I think your class is more like, these are some E&O risks you may not know about that are they're not esoteric, but they're not your everyday E&O risks. And depending on changes in regulatory statutes and business climate, these definitely come to the front. And that's what you meant by the class, right? I mean, you gave some examples of some very, very specific kinds of E&O.
Yeah, these are the kinds of not new exposures in the sense of a brand new invention, so to speak, but these are the kinds of exposures that I'm seeing growing, and agents are less likely to be aware of that because they're growing exposure. They need to be aware of them, and that's especially true with the two rulings just in the last 10 days for both California and Georgia that greatly expand the standard of care. With those two rulings hold, agents better listen to my class and then step it up even further, because that means those two states will have gone arguably to the highest standard of care possible in the country, unless Supreme Courts overrule them later.
Got it. I mean, you're exhorting us at the end of the class to look up whether or not a company is even able to work with you on insurance. Like, are they look up their licenses. It's kind of like Get Up or Nope, like a Jordan Peele film.
It's really easy to ask a company for their a broker for their E&O certificate of insurance, and it's really easy to look up a company or a broker on the state's website to see if they have a license that's current and active. It really doesn't take any time at all.
One of the things you talked about, I didn't realize this was a thing in the E&O climate was licensing. You're like, don't use other people's licenses. Do people do that a lot, or what's the? Is that
It's
really
not uncommon. Let's put it that way.
okay?
It's not uncommon. Yeah. Yeah. It's not supposed to happen, but it does.
Another one that seems like common sense, like don't put these on when you're writing an auto policy, but excluded drivers, somehow they find their way onto an auto policy. I mean, can you tell us a little more about, I can see already like,
yeah, it's a default position. A lot of times you look at from a family's perspective, and they think that the driver is automatically included because they're part of the family. But the way some of these policies are now being written, they're excluded. They are not covered. And the exclusions are just growing in so many different ways. And sometimes the exclusion is they're excluded for everything. And other times they are excluded only under certain circumstances, or they're excluded. Part of the policy will still react, but part of the policy will not react.
right.
That's really a different world than what private passenger auto has been for the last 100 years. Historically, you were either included or you were excluded. But that's not the case any longer. There's a lot of facets to what is an excluded driver these days. And it's not all common sense. It really isn't. I don't like it. I see a lot of people making assumptions that, well, that makes sense. They should be included. But they're not. And that worries me. So you take somebody that's of driving age but doesn't have a license, but has access to the vehicles, and they take car out, not all policies are going to pay for that claim.
Right. Got it. Huh. You had an interesting, all the exclusions had interesting examples that followed them. You had one that was a pollution exclusion.
Yeah.
Where pollution wasn't covered on the policy, but the people that were suing the dry cleaners, if I'm not mistaken, for a pollutant, they sued in your words, everyone else in the strip mall, the people that paved the parking lot, whoever else. Like maybe this is not an E&O question, but when someone makes an insurance claim, they involve a lot more entities than, like it seems like it makes a claim less winnable. Maybe if the more frivolous the claim is, like, should that person have just sued the dry cleaner and not sued the karate studio 3 doors down and sued the paver? Like, would they probably wouldn't have had more of a leg to stand on because pollution wasn't covered in the policy. But in your opinion, do you think that makes the claim frivolous? The more entities they're filing the claim against?
In my non-legal mind, it makes it more frivolous. But the problem that exists here is that the other parties don't have any defense coverage. And that costs a lot of money to defend against a frivolous claim. I've had enough clients sued for frivolous claims that, you still have to hire an attorney. You still have to respond. You still have to go to court. You still have to do work.
Right.
And that's the problem with these exclusions, is that there's not any coverage for defense unless if you have one of these absolute exclusions. It's just awful.
Right. You had talked about associations, and it reminded me of it wasn't a humorous discussion, but kind of reminded me of the Steve Martin routine, where he was thinking of starting his own bank, but he had to pick a really like a solid name, like, in his words, like Security First Trust and Federal Reserve. He said, because nobody's going to put their money in Fred's Bank. Hi, I'm Fred. I have a bank. Get 1,500. Put it here in my suit pocket. You talked, and it reminded me of when you talked about associations. You're like, associations look like insurance companies, but aren't because they aren't well regulated. Do associations have a Fred's Bank feel to you, or is it? Am I?
Oh yeah, I mean,
here?
And it's not that they're not well regulated; they are not regulated at all. At all. And when I describe this to people, their initial reaction is, "How in the world could this ever be allowed to exist?" And I think they have a very good point. And so, more so than the Steve Martin aspect of it, you have a situation here where, hey, George, I've created this association for broadcasters, and if you are part of my association, I will get you insurance that's not really insurance for 25% less than what you're paying now. And the reason it can be 25% less is because I'm a nonprofit association, and I don't have to pay anybody like underwriters or claims adjusters or anybody like that, because I'm not actually an insurance company, and I don't have to pay to file anything because, well, I'm not an insurance company, so I don't have to file anything. So I'm saving all this money, and you're also supporting the association all at the same time. Isn't this a great, beautiful world? And then the question goes, okay, well, how much money do you have in the bank? And I saw one where they had $500,000 in the bank, and it was all high hazard liability. Multiple states, arguably 45 states. And the average claim in that space is $500,000. And it's like, okay, well, how much money do you really have? Well, we have reinsurance. Okay, well, you have $500,000 in the bank. Your reinsurance attachment point is $2.5 million. Who pays the difference between 500 and 2.5 million? Oh, I don't think we'll ever have a claim like that. So it's okay. You're just making a mountain out of a molehill.
Right.
That's a true story. And that's what, I think people that, and some agents are going to feel pressure to work with associations because they will lose their clients if they don't, because the rates are so cheap. And the clients, they don't care until they have an unpaid claim.
Chris, I'm a big fan of parody songs. I'm a big fan of insurance parody songs and the bands that create them. So I guess you could say this, and I'll say this last one because we're doing a promo for it anyway. So you can't, as they used to say in Scotland, you can break the glass, but you can't hold back the water. You know what I mean? And so this sounds like something that could have been for insurance parody band Binder and Garfunkel. That's like, that's just kind of stretching. But Chris, a book that you wrote that the Academy published a while back is getting a new coat of paint, and you touched on maybe 6 or 7 examples of emerging risks in 2026. But this book we're going to be putting back on the market has 50. It's like 50 ways to leave your lover, 50 tips you should never forget. I was reaching there, but But Binder and Garfunkel, I don't know. That's kind of a work in progress. But
yeah, 50 ways
to market again. And could you tell us a little more about when it's
it's just the market? It's just a compendium of 50 common E&O claims, 50 common E&O exposures. Every agency faces them, and it's a little explanation of it, and then there's a little explanation of how to mitigate your risk. It's a good reference book for people to have on their desk, especially for new people that don't know anything whatsoever about E&O. Kind of give them a feel for what the full exposure really is, and very bite-sized recommendations.
Wow. Well, I promise you it's much more exciting than you're talking about, and you wrote it, so don't worry, we're going to hype it up. You ever heard E&O done dirt cheap? Have we ever?
I have.
You have? Okay, great. Well, then there's no need to talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's
All right.
wonderful. I love it.
Well, good.
It's
Someday we'll release that too when we are legally able.
yeah,
We're not legally able at the moment, but we're legally able to release your book. So the
yeah.
class was and is emerging risks for 2026, and brand new. It's a new book, but an old favorite. 50 tips you should never forget. Don't ever forget what Chris Burand has to say. Chris, man, I could talk to you for another hour. I don't know that my questions will get any better, but hopefully I tried to elevate my normal lines of inquiry for this one. Did I do a better job? Better questions?
I think so. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. No, let me leave you with this. E&O is just part and parcel of being an insurance agent or of being any professional. It doesn't matter what role you're in. And one of the funny things about E&O and for agents in particular is this. Number one tool to avoid an E&O claim when I started this 30 some years ago and today is a coverage checklist. A well-used coverage checklist goes really long ways to minimizing the chances that you're going to get sued. And second is that agents that elevate themselves to the professional level, not just talk about it, but actually elevate it, their frequency of E&O claims is significantly lower than the frequency of E&O claims for amateurs. And
I like it.
Some people think of amateur as derogatory, but if you have professionals, you can only have amateurs. What else you want to call them? So you can't, I'm sort of a professional. I don't think that flies. So the true professional agents have very few E&O claims. And those guys all use checklists by and large. And your odds of getting sued in that space are pretty minimal, actually.
All right. So your book could actually not just have bite-sized, tidbits about E&O coverage, but it could help someone prevent themselves from getting sued.
Well, that's the goal of the book. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
50 different areas in which suits arise, but here's the way to mitigate each aspect, each of the 50 areas. Here's what you can do. And, like I said, it's bite-sized, so it's not overwhelming or it's not deep and where you have to get into all the nitty-gritty of policy forms and ISO says this and so says that. Very common sense, very practical. From my clients' perspectives that have adopted my recommendations, it's all very practical as well. So,
well, if you ever need somebody to read the audiobook version.
Yeah, you could. I hope that it encourages people to buy it and use it. The royalties aren't going to do much for me, but it could hopefully do a whole lot. And especially with E&O deductibles, being $25,000, $50,000 more frequently these days, and even sometimes $100,000. If we can save one person their deductible, that's awesome.
So everybody watching this, think of Chris's buying Chris's book as a contribution to the Burandathon, because Chris Burand doesn't believe that the royalties are going to do anything for him, but we need to prove him wrong. So everyone get out there, buy that book, and have him rolling in the proverbial
we'll see if we can get enough royalties to buy a cheeseburger or something, maybe. But
I bet we can do that.
Yeah, right. It'd be truly, and I said it early on in the presentation, E&O, you have a financial aspect to it. The emotional aspect is,
right,
especially when it's not a legitimate E&O claim, it's a frivolous E&O claim. We can minimize the chances of that happening because those are the most emotionally hard on agency owners, in my experience. The fact that they're being sued for doing absolutely nothing wrong, they're being accused of hurting somebody, injuring a client, when they've done nothing wrong, emotionally that wears on people.
Right.
And anything we can do, not just financially, but emotionally, to minimize the chances of that wear and tear on your brain and your body. I hope that it can help. I've had clients die early because of E&O claims. The stress overwhelmed them. I've had clients sell their agencies as soon as they got through really awful E&O claims where they literally did nothing wrong. I had one, George, where the plaintiff attorney thought so highly of the agent that they were suing that he asked that agent if the agent would insure him when it was all said and done, because he was so impressed. Because the agent had done nothing wrong, but the plaintiff attorney couldn't admit that the agent had done nothing wrong. The claim lasted 7 years, and it wore the agency owner out so much that as soon as it was settled, he put the agency up for sale, and he moved out of town within 30 days of the sale going through. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to take the chances. The book goes through a bunch of stuff that's very common sense. Much of what I talked about today, easy to implement, simple stuff.
Still plugging the book. I love it. I'm going to get you those cheeseburgers.
All right.
Everybody, the class was Emerging E&O Risks for 2026. The book is 50 E&O tips you should never forget. 50 E&O tips you never forget. Our instructor and excellent friend of the Academy is Chris Burand. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. And thanks for coming to the after show, too. On behalf of our instructor, Chris, this is your host, George, saying thanks, everybody, for coming to the after show. If you have a friend who is interested in E&O but isn't a member of the Academy yet, have them join, because there's tons of E&O material to study. It's fantastic. So everybody, take good care of yourselves. Have a great day. Have a cheeseburger. We'll talk to you soon.